desire that gets you in, and it's recognizing when you are ready to let go of everything more precious than.
Hi, I'm Jeff Barkman, and I talk about things. Today I'm talking about selflessness, authentic selflessness. A lot of us grew up in the church or out of the church, exposed to the narrative that selflessness is the way to achieve holiness, or selflessness is the way to please God. After 2,000 years of church history and theology and theologians working really hard to try and better align with truth, like the things that we're thinking about God, trying to better align with truth, I would suggest that the trouble in our age is not that we're all too selfish and that we need more selflessness in our religion. I would suggest that the trouble in our age is that we've got this narrative at play that says that self is so bad that it needs to be suppressed in order to achieve holiness. Nonsense. I would go even further and say that selflessness, the only context in which selflessness is authentic selflessness, is in the context of loving yourself well. There's an Abby Stumvall quote that has recently just smashed me to pieces, and it's echoed in my story, actually, which is a beautiful thing for me. But what she says is, what you sow in self-hatred, you'll reap in self-hatred. In my early 20s, I was 165 pounds, and I lost 105 pounds. I got down to 160 pounds. I remember I bought jeans that were size 29 waist. Wild. And then I stayed thin. I was smoking cigarettes too. I had problems. I stayed thin until I started learning how to love myself well. And as I learned how to love myself well, these infrastructures that I had built in my life through self-hatred, I literally used to tell people, they'd ask me how I lost 105 pounds, and I would tell them that there came a moment where I really took to heart that you are what you eat, and I figured my body was probably made of chocolate cake and frickin' cheesecake and milkshakes and Pepsi. And I got super disgusted with myself, and it was from that place that I changed my whole relationship to food. And so as I started learning to love myself well, years later, when I had started, well, I didn't really start losing weight until I didn't start gaining weight until I started learning to love myself well. And it was horrifying to me at the time too, because a lot of my self-love was contingent on being thin. So I started learning to love myself well, started gaining a little bit of weight, and I couldn't really figure it out, but I kind of just listened to Holy Spirit and went on with it. The interesting thing is what you sow in self-hatred is shakeable. And as soon as it gets shaken, it's broken. So I didn't have any systems to stay thin anymore, so I gained a whole bunch of weight. I purposely didn't weigh myself at my heaviest. There's a video of me preaching on joy. I would say that's this is my before hour-long video. But, the journey of loving myself well has actually now brought me into a place where the Lord has shown me that when I'm in my 40s, I'm going to be thin and kind of muscly. And so that's actually an invitation to act on. So I've changed my whole diet, and I've started exercising. And actually the whole nature in which I'm losing weight this time is investing in my future and giving to myself and giving my body what it needs and what it wants. And so it's entirely different. So I have high hopes that it's going to be a more permanent solution, or a more permanent foundation in my life. That whole loving yourself well movement has come from identifying that we have had this narrative that the self is terrible and needs to be put down in order to achieve holiness, or in order to please God. But, that's kind of unique. It's not super unique to our generation, but I would say that when the Bible was written and people wrote down, love your neighbor as you love yourself, they didn't have 2,000 years of church history saying the self is terrible. And so that meant something different to them than it does to us. And actually what we have now is we've got this narrative that's told us that self is horrible and needs to be put down. Now we're trying to love our neighbor, but you can only love your neighbor as well as you can love yourself. And so you've got a whole bunch of people that have a really hard time loving their neighbor because their internal world is filled with infrastructure that's built on self-hatred. It just doesn't work. And that's why a lot of times when people preach the gospel, it just falls flat. The gospel is always effective. And don't even get me started on the gospel. But to the degree that we're in agreement with love, we're able to receive love from God. I know that in my story, as I've let go of whatever infrastructure I had that was built on self-hatred, as those things crumbled and went away, I was able to have greater encounters with the Lord and receive more from him. But back to the point, the whole selflessness talk here that we're in the middle of. I recently had an encounter just in the prayer time before church on a Sunday where we were asked to ask God for something. And I decided that I was going to come selflessly before the Lord. I was going to, I was going to be like, Lord, I don't need anything from you. I don't want anything from you. I'm just here to minister to you. And there are times when that heart posture is really powerful and moves the heart of God. But this morning, that's not what he was doing. I was out of line with what he was doing. And he said to me, but I like giving you things that you like. And I was really taken aback. And I tried really hard to think of something to ask him for, but I really couldn't come up with anything at the time. And I think that it was probably because I was a little bit out of touch with my heart in that moment. And so I just ended up asking him that my wife Megan would have a good day, and that Megan would have a good week, and that Megan would have a good life with me. And he met me in that place. I didn't really know what my heart needed. But he met me there and met me with affirmation that I'm a good husband and that he's going to continue working in our life. And, that was a really special encounter because he came with love that was kind of just beyond my ability in that moment to love myself well, and brought me into a greater degree of having grace for myself and having acceptance for myself. And he kind of took me out of that place of denying myself not for a good reason, and brought me back into a place where I'm in right relationship with myself and with him. It was a beautiful thing. Yeah. So the whole point I'm trying to make is that selflessness, in the context of loving yourself well, ends up being a really powerful choice. It ends up costing you something. But when you love yourself well and you know yourself well and you're operating in reality in that regard, you're able to count the costs, make the choice, and then you're able to offer authentic selflessness. So thank you so much for watching these videos. I really appreciate you. I appreciate every like, every comment, every subscriber. Yeah, this channel is still kind of in its infancy. And so it would help me a lot if you would share my videos on whatever social media platform you play on. That would mean the world to me. I'm trying to build an audience, and I don't really know what I'm doing. Bless you.